When someone repeatedly forgets, they're pushing something to the back of their mind and not making you a priority. Whether it's forgetting to call or forgetting to follow through on a date or a commitment or a responsibility or an errand or something you asked them to do or wanted them expressed that you wanted them to do. It feels like they don't really care about you, and I am still going through that. This is kind of basically an update, but I want to drive it to home. And one of my resolutions or goals that I want to reach for this new year is studying this part of humanity. Many of us are uncomfortable. I'll speak on the people that are dealing with it and the people that are doing it. Many of us are uncomfortable with thinking about things. Many of us know, most of us, I recognize that some people just don't have that part of their brain that works that way. They lack that part of their brain that remembers to have regard for others, or that remembers that they have a responsibility. But many of us, and many people, they consciously forget, or maybe they subconsciously forget. But there are some topics that I've been discussing that have caused our society of late and back in the day and back in the olden times, has made our society uncomfortable, has made humans uncomfortable. Homosexuality, LGBTQ issues, mental illness, ongoing social issues like racism and genderism. I'll say genderism because we say gender now. I don't know if we're all uncomfortable saying the word sex, but I'll say genderism. Anti-woman, anti-man, anti-trans, anti-whatever. And I've run into something where when people mean well and they don't want to let other people know that they are racist, or that they sometimes have racist thoughts or sexist thoughts in their heads, or anti-LGBTQ trans thoughts in their heads, they will forget. They will consciously or subconsciously disregard. I'll give you an example. When I was little, I don't know if I shared this already. I don't care right now. This is kind of an educational thing, or helping people wake up and have some knowledge here. My stepfather and my mother split up when I was 4 years old. And my mother went through a lot of heartache and betrayal when they split up. I guess she fell in love again after she split up with my biological father, and maybe she thought that things were gonna, go really well with Mike and my stepfather, and they didn't, and it was very bitter and very painful for her. And I think she was very close to him. I think they got along, and they got together like a couple of flower children hippies. I grew up in that era. I was born in 1967, and my mother must have had excruciating pain when the divorce took place, and in the process I was abused by him, and I don't know if that's what they split up over. It was probably a lot of other stuff too. He abused her too. I don't know what he did. I think he basically yelled at her and fought with her all the time, and I don't know if he physically abused her, but I know for a fact he psychologically and emotionally and verbally abused her. They were fighting all the time at the end of their marriage, and when they split up, my mother forbade me to talk about it, and she forbade me to even say his name or speak about him in any way, or even act like I remembered him. So I forced myself when I was 5 years old, and when I was 7 years old, um, he tried to come back and reconcile with my mom, and my mom wouldn't have it, and I wanted him to come home. Again, I must have forgotten what he had done to me, but my mother wouldn't hear of it, and that was when my mother forbade me again. Don't talk about him. I don't want to hear about him in this house. I don't want to even, he's not even your daddy, and I thought he was, you guys. And so I had to force myself to forget about him. And I had to also force myself to forget, incidentally, that my mother and I knew a famous person, and we were friends with her. I won't name them, but we were close friends with a famous person. And I guess that ended around the time my mother died. She was still associating with her, and we were still friends, but I think we were drifting apart, maybe because my mother was getting really sick at that time. But I forgot about that too, because it was painful to have to lose that. And I think on another level it was painful to lose my mom. So I tried to forget about my mother. Almost did, not quite. I kept remembering, couldn't help it. My aunt talked about my mom all the time too. But I did what people in the 70s and 80s continually advised me to do. Push it to the back of your mind, Carol. Forget about it. Get over it. Don't even think about it. Stop thinking about it. Stop talking about it. Stop feeling it. And I guess on some level I did. But I always wonder, I guess the heart always remembers and the body always remembers. And I always felt depressed. I always felt sad. I always felt angry. I always felt afraid. And on some level I didn't trust my family, my aunt, and even my mother, because it's like, if they won't even talk about it, there's a part of our family that's dead, or there's a part of me that's dead. It's just because we're cutting it out. So even I was forced to forget things, or I felt compelled to forget things I was told to when I was a child, and then even as an adult, I still didn't want to go back and remember for a long time, and I finally did because I was forced to. I had a second nervous breakdown when I was in my 30s, and then I started remembering what my stepfather had done. I started remembering that my mother had forbade me to talk about him in any way, for any reason. I started remembering him and having flashbacks. And I know today that when something happens in the present life, or when I go through something in life as an adult, I think I have subconscious flashbacks. I have emotional flashbacks, and I have to confront them and deal with them. And I haven't been able to in therapy because I don't have that kind of money to pay for that kind of therapy. Just Medicaid and Medicare. And not only can't I find a therapist in network, but I can't find find the right therapy that is paid for. And people keep referring me to mental health clinics, but they don't help, or they still don't take my form of insurance. In California, I have to pick a Medicaid plan, and either they don't take the Medicaid plan and Medicare, or vice versa. So I'm kind of in between the cracks here. And I had to leave the IOP because they were practicing very similar abuse, very similar behavior that I was forced to. Now, honest people, when we have to deal with something really painful or uncomfortable, like that homosexuality exists, or that mental illness exists, and many of us don't want to talk about it or think about it, or they don't want to talk. We don't want to talk about or think about what we might have done wrong. what we might have done wrong, and so we block it and we forget. And the drivers at the IOP are forgetting me on purpose. They're forgetting to pick me up when I want a ride, and they're forgetting not to pick me up when I don't want a ride. And I got an unofficial contract with the manager last week saying I was going to self-transport. They forgot. They didn't sign the contract, and they didn't have me sign it. It was just a piece of paper, typed piece of paper that said Carol will self-transport and get a ride home from us every day. And they weren't honoring that. So in light of knowing that they don't respect me, they're not even honoring their own rules. They're consciously, deliberately forgetting with selective memory even things that we agreed upon. And that's a dishonest thing. I had to honestly forget about my stepfather because I was under my mother's care. I was depending on her to survive. I don't know if Olga was going through that too. She's under the care of that system still currently. And I think, I wonder if they told her to forget about me. I wonder if they told her to stay away from me because I'm gay. Very disturbing stuff. And along with many other human behaviors, I'm going to study this. I think it's a very interesting, under the radar, very disturbing behavior. And I think whether we're honest or not, we need to look at it. And we need to look at other people doing that and call it out. And say, listen, we have to face things in this life. And that another video, but that's also about toxic positivity. We don't want to look at the negative. We cover it up with positivity and positive thinking too. We get told we're negative when we call things out and look at things. That's wrong too. Let's differentiate between avoiding negativity and avoiding facing realities that are too painful, we think are too painful to face. Okay. See you later. Happy New Year. Hope it's a good one.